Now I'm recording part 2 of my video. You know why my part 1 ended so abruptly was because I was trying to click on my Microsoft Edge so that I could see the PowerPoint, the PDF slides that SGBuster sent me. Then my dumbass clicked on Google Chrome and it basically exposed this sector. This section, when I was like, nah, no, 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 I gotta cut my video. Oh crap! No, 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 no. Like I was actually trying to click on this one. Yeah, basically, that was what happened just now. And this is how you know my videos are not scripted. Like now I gotta like, I just wasted so much time. I need to like think about what I said just now. Okay, so I was saying that like the operator corrective action tool. Okay, let's just return to the video. I was saying this and this, like as compared to, please don't click on the wrong thing again, as opposed to just this operator corrective action 1, and then I was saying speed up and allocate 1 minute estimated waiting time. So yeah, that was like that solution. The next one is that it's the final slide, by the way. Okay, back to this. Okay, so this one, it's basically the driver's like normal actions. It's the speed up to make up for future, like again, future time loss due to traffic jam. But this one is basically, okay, the allocate 1 minute estimated waiting time allowance for each TP sector. This is still the same. But as you can see, the difference between this and this is that there is this red line, notorious traffic jam area. So you could take it that this is like peak hours and then this is off peak hours. Traffic jam no longer present. So that's the difference. And then when there is no traffic jam present, the next bus is asked to slow to a crawl, which means goyang, to maintain consistent headway with the front late bus. This is basically when there is no traffic congestion at all. This one is actually speed up, but when there's no jam, they would be told to slow down or like hold at the bus stop, so that, as you can see, to ensure that like the headways are somewhat consistent. That's why measured measured EWT is at 1, because it's like 15, 16, 15, 16. So this is one way whereby they actually maintain the headway. And as you can see in the words in red, which is basically what I explained, bus deliberately becomes late to match, yeah, scheduled headway. SHW means scheduled headway. But using these diagrams alone, and I'm hoping that like my train of thought is still here, right? You know, maybe it's a good thing that my mind reset it. Otherwise, I would have said it wrong. But okay. The downside about BSRF in general is that, you know, basically this sector between TP2 and T2, let's say it's Lantor Avenue. This is to explain why sometimes 851, like during peak hours, they can F1. They drive like F1 drivers. Not really, but you get the idea. It's a figurative speech in case some of you don't understand. And basically this means that like during off-peak hours, why you would see 851, 852, or even 853 being slow, it's because like during, at Lanter Avenue, they deliberately add a lot of time so that basically the buses that get delayed along this sector, they could make up time. They drive normally, they don't have to like speed or anything. They drive normally and then they would make up time. So this is for peak hours. But when you try to apply this, again, this is just an illustration on how BOCC basically enforces time. But the downside about having this is that During off-peak hours, your bus, if they do not take into account about the fact that there's no traffic jam, in fact, like when they plan the headways, I mean, when they plan the run times, they plan it according to the worst case scenario. They put the assumption that okay, there will be congestion. So regardless of like the time period throughout the day. And in Orchard Road, that's kind of true, right? Sometimes the congestion would just be there when you least expect it. Of course, it's not that bad, but the way they designed it, like by design, it's so that they take into account like the worst case scenario, especially when they have to enforce time, regardless of whether it's like 4 to 5 minute deviation or 1 to 2 minute deviation. So unlike Hong Kong, whereby the buses they just have to depart the terminal at the stipulated time, and I'm not sure about their first and last bus, but like they just have to depart the terminal at the stipulated time and then they can just fly. This is the reason why Hong Kong buses are able to fly, because they just don't have, a full-fledged timetable per se, unlike Singapore. But because Singapore, like ever since BCM, they introduced BSRF and it became time-based, right? So yeah, that's the reason why when you do it time-based, you have to take into account like the worst case scenario so that you do not make your drivers panic and then make them F1 and make them drive recklessly because your timetables are crap. So yeah, but again, as with what I was trying to say, there is a downside to this. When there is no jam, this would happen. So it is really up to the public transport operators to determine when there is a jam and when there is no jam. I'm not saying include the buffer during this period of time and do not include the buffer during this period of time, but you adjust accordingly. I think that's what they're doing anyway. You adjust accordingly to how much buffer you need throughout A24 and when the bus is in operation, like there is a time period, right? AM peak, AM off peak, PM peak, PM off peak, right? You adjust it according to the congestion levels based on your own experience with the bus service in general. Like you decide during peak hours how much buffer time do you need, during off peak how much buffer time do you need, and then you adjust accordingly. So that's the way to do BSRF effectively. But as you know, toilet transit sucks at this. And then you see 855 being like slow as shit. But honestly, that is more of like during the last few buses or even I don't know, 855 is slow. They just want to stretch time because lack of resources, lack of drivers. I'll just make them road hog, I guess. But yeah, it's a completely different story. So you know how I talked about the buffer zone, right? This is basically, I mean, I yapped a little too much, but this is basically what I mean by buffer zone. Wait, did I just? Okay, never mind. 143 syndrome. This pretty much speaks for itself. So again, with the previous concepts discussed, average measured headway 10 minutes, the headway is consistent if everybody is late. So drivers are not permitted to speed up so that you maintain a consistent gap, like as you see 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. And then you see when they bunch, it's 0 minute. But the bunching is like kind of like it cannot be helped because this is a congestion prone zone, like Orchard Road traffic jam. And then if you want specific examples, TP7 Far East Plaza, TP8 opposite Novena MRT, Novena Church. So again, yeah. This is tailored according to like Singapore. So yes, as you can see, everybody is late. As you can see, late, 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 late on time. But they are, the main point is that they are consistently late. Oops, sorry. And what happens when they're consistently late? I know drivers only make up time after their last TP, but again, to allow drivers to even make up time in the first place, a long runtime is scheduled between Novena MRT and Trellis Towers, Topayo, wherever you call it. I don't think Trellis is a point. I think Novena is like the last point stop, basically. Yeah. So the reason why sometimes at the end stretch of the route, like Lentor Avenue or in this case 143 at Thompson Road, why they make the buses slow as shit. Not really, but it's like why they allocate so much time is because everybody is consistently late anyway. So this is kind of like rigging the timetable to, yeah, ensure that they still have like a 15-minute break. Like their break times do not get affected. So everything has already been taken into account when it comes to like the runtime, in essence. However, again, this is exactly what SG Buses is trying to show using 143 as an example. When there is no traffic jam at Orchard Road, everybody becomes early. As you can see, I mean, it's on time, but like, again, hitway's consistent, 15, 15, 15, 15. If you do not remove, I'm not saying you should remove the buffer like what I said. If you add way too much buffer during off-peak, you see, right? The As seen from this diagram, the problem lies when the public transport operators, they do not know when to decrease the amount of time needed for the buffer zone during like off peak, yada yada yada. But yeah, if they just they just whack a 15-minute buffer, they just whack a 30-minute buffer regardless of time period of the day, and basically they don't give a shit, this is basically what would happen. But if they actually give a shit and they make it so that, okay, based on our observations, Orchard Road isn't like jam prone at this part of the day. Okay, the buffer is still there just in case something happens, but we'll just make it so that the buffer during off peak is not as much as the buffer during peak hours. So again, with the way this diagram is being illustrated, it clearly shows that. Just that maybe I need to explain a little bit for people who might not get it the first time. So yeah, again, this is the same thing. The only difference is that over here, your buffer is adequate. Over here, you have too much buffer and it's not really needed. Why? Because it's off peak. This is just scheduled hitway, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. It doesn't matter, but this is just trying to say that regardless of your hitway, because again, EWT OTA, again, measured using headway, measured using time, right? Again, there is actually a slight difference between, it's like, even though like they're more or less the same, just with like different levels of strictness per se, the fact is that like EWT, it's more it's there is a bit more emphasis in the consistent wait times as opposed to like OTA being like, oh, this bus stop depart at this time, this bus stop depart at this time, you're not allowed to be early. It's the same for the last bus, but again, EWT, it focuses more on the hitway between buses as opposed to being on time. Obviously, even for EWT, you cannot deviate from the scheduled runtime for 4 to 5 minutes. Otherwise, for no reason, otherwise, you will probably get a scolding from BOCC. They would say, please maintain time, please maintain hitway, stuff like that. But again, even though the concept is similar, one focuses on hitways, EWT, and OTA focuses on time. Now, the effect is still more or less the same, but again, this is more hitway based. And everything here that I've talked about, it's trying to show you guys the emphasis, even though the effect is the same, but it's just the emphasis on the hitway per se. Hopefully you guys get it. And this is why my videos are unscripted. I just cook up things on the spot basically. So hopefully you guys understand. But you know why I'm even yapping about this? It's because in practice, right, it doesn't really matter if it's EWT or OTA. It's only like one emphasizes on hitway and one emphasizes on like being on time. But what ends up okay, this is a full 911 Betty bus by the way. Yesterday, like just yesterday. I think a lot of people are like going back to Malaysia. Okay, so basically right. Now this is kind of like a short section on do I really think OTA is needed? So again, like I've showed you guys in the previous video, yes, low density, low density, low density as well. They are here for connectivity, and because like I told you, 6th Avenue, it's low density. That's the reason why all of these have to be like okay. Again, I do understand that 77 is not OTA, if I'm not mistaken, but the concept, even if this is like EWT from Monday to Sunday, and this is like EWT from Monday to Friday, but concept remains like the same. The reason why some bus services are like basically weekends only or every single day, this is just how they do it, but conceptually it's because they still need a bus connection and they need some form of reliability if their frequencies are going to be shit in the first place. It's because these bus services are literally their only connectivity to the outside world or to their nearest major bus stop or MRT station or major amenity, blah 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 blah. But this is why OTA is needed, because 6th Avenue, it's poorly connected to the outside world. I mean, I wouldn't say really. I have seen places that are worse, but again, this is just trying to explain why OTA is needed. However, the one thing that I do not agree on. Okay, that's the SCDF chime. Okay, so basically, right. Again, EWT is like a BSRF framework thing. Like I cannot really say, oh, we shouldn't do EWT or anything because it's the framework. Whether we need the framework or not is another issue. I could disagree with it, but again, this is what Singapore has chosen, BSRF in general, because they were like, our frequencies were not consistent in the past and we need some form of it. We need to ensure some form of like reliability of our bus services, them arriving somewhat on time. If not, passengers would complain. Again, these are what the rules are, what's how it's the buses are being governed in Singapore. And even if I yap and yap and yap, I cannot change things. So I'm not trying to say, oh, BSRF is bad or what, because you know if your bus frequencies become too bad, they would be bound to complaints and stuff like that. So again, I am in no position to say, oh, let's just throw away BSRF and stuff like that. But what is within our means, like what we can actually control is which buses use OTA. Like this is going to be the norm anyway, but which buses use OTA. Now, these bus services going OTA either on weekends only or weekdays only or like every single day, or even if you choose either whatever, but this is needed because 6th Avenue needs like some form of like reliability because it's a low density area. Now, when it comes to this one, I do not agree with this. Why? Is because expressway, expressway as well, and then there's like jam-prone sectors, and then la 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 expressway as well. These are essential services. These are like, I wouldn't say they are essential. Now, do not take my words out of context. What I'm trying to say is that when I mean essential, I mean you could survive without these services. There are alternative options of commuting, but your life would be really difficult without them. I mean, right now this service is pretty much useless at this point in time, but let's say we're talking about this. these are the services that are like absolutely needed, but they are just there to make commuters' lives a lot easier. You know why? Because you cannot just rely on MRT every single time, and then other like options of travel might not be as good. Like let's say service 23, yada yada yada. Like 23 may not be doorstep enough, and then you have to transfer. Whereas this takes you direct to like wherever you want to go, right? So here's the thing: when I say it's not essential, I mean these bus services, they kind of function like bonus services, which means that I would rather for these services you learn how to check the bus arrival timings, either at the screens placed at the bus stop or using the bus apps, because I would say these are more of like it's a service, like how to say, it's a kind of like we're gonna, how do I put it? It's like we care about our commuters. We want them to have a good doorstep experience, but unfortunately, these aren't like the top priority services or anything. It's just bonus services that we introduce to make commuting a lot easier, that kind of thing. And this is basically the reason why I disagree with these having OTA in the first place. If no OTA and they're express services, it's gonna destroy the point of why they are even express in the first place. But then again, you could just blame SBS because they made them express in the first place, and then now they're kind of stuck with this express fare nonsense, right? But yeah, basically, this is just trying to explain why. My point is that they aren't necessarily the most essential services, but they are still needed. You still run them. It's just that I'm okay with it if their frequencies are inconsistent, simply because they are bonus services. They are not like these services that are essential for taking people out. Like, this is literally their only connectivity to the outside world. But these ones, they are super important services. And then they have their demographic group as well. It's just that in the grand scheme of things, like if you look at it from like a macro perspective, I don't know how you say it, but basically you could live without them. Okay, again, I would put these into the category of stuff. You cannot live without 190 or 972, but you could technically live without these express services. It's just that if you want to make them express right, don't make them OTA. It's okay if their frequencies are poo-poo. I'm already thankful for the fact that they exist as compared to Japan, whereby the public transport like bus and train frequencies and connectivity in general is crap. Not just the countryside, but even the suburbs as well. I know it's because of density, but if you actually live in Japan, not saying oh you're going there for a holiday, or even if you go for a holiday, right? There are some places which are pretty much like inaccessible because the public transport frequencies are shit, right? But I'm just trying to say, as compared to Japan, whereby connectivity and frequency are dog shit, especially in the suburbs and countryside, I'm really thankful that in Singapore, like I mean, I'm not gonna be in Singapore for long anyway, but I'm just saying, as a public transport user in Singapore, I am not anti-car or anything. I'm just saying, as a public transport user in Singapore, because my ass is too lazy to get a fucking car license, because I'm just lazy and I don't like to road rage because the drivers here suck. But again, I'm just trying to say, as a public transport user, because I have experienced worse public transport, I am actually thankful for the existence of these services. So you could give me like 40-minute frequencies on this service, and I don't give a crap. You know why? Because it is on me to quote unquote embrace technology to check the bus arrival timings, either at the screens or using my app, and I could plan my journey accordingly. Knowing that these aren't necessarily the most essential services and they are just there to make commuting easier, I will take it. So basically, these are my opinions. Again, thank you, SG Buses, for allowing me the opportunity to talk about this. You're the best.